Imagine this. You're walking down the street and you witness someone having a panic attack, or you walk past someone who's in their car unconscious with a syringe in their hand. Would you know what to do in these situations? In 2016, I started working in the field of drug and alcohol rehabilitation. One of my clients suffered severe childhood trauma and experienced non-epileptic seizures. I panicked the first time this happened, and I had no idea how to help. This spurred my call to action, and I got trained in mental health first aid. Today I want to talk to you about mental illness, addiction, and mental health first aid training. Mental illness and addiction are serious problems that are affecting our population, and we should all be educated on how to help. Let's first talk about mental illness. Mental illness is very common in the United States. Any mental illness, or AMI, is a mental, behavioral, or emotional disorder which can range from no impairment to mild, moderate, and even severe impairment. According to data recorded by the National Institute of Mental Health, in 2016, an estimated 44.7 million adults were affected by an AMI, which is 18.3% of all American adults. Serious mental illness, or SMI, is defined as a mental, behavioral, or emotional disorder which results in serious functional impairment which substantially interferes with or limits one or more major life activities. In 2016, there were 10.4 million adults in the United States affected by an SMI, which is approximately 4.2% of all US adults, and that's not including the ones already affected by an AMI. Mental illness is also prevalent in children. Our children are not exempt. The American Psychological Association estimates that 15 million children in the US can currently be diagnosed with a mental health disorder. Mental illness can have devastating effects on a person's personal life and their well-being. According to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, 26% of homeless adults live with mental illness. 24% of state prisoners have histories of mental health conditions, and 90% of those who die from suicide have a mental illness. And suicide is actually the 10th leading cause of death in the United States. Now that we've looked at the prevalence of mental illness, let's take a look at addiction. Addiction is also a very common problem affecting the United States. Addiction is a chronic disease characterized by drug-seeking behavior that is compulsive or difficult to control despite harmful consequences. Alcohol is one of the most common addictions affecting Americans. According to Addiction Center, in 2011, 16.7 million people were affected by alcoholism. Addiction can take many forms, whether it be alcohol, tobacco, or any other illicit street drugs such as cocaine, methamphetamines, opioids. That also can include any prescribed opioids given by a doctor. The Center on Addiction estimates that 40 million people, that's 1 in 7 people, ages 12 and older, have a substance problem. Addiction to opiates is especially dangerous due to the risk of overdose. There were more than 72,000 overdose deaths in the United States in 2017, according to CNN. That means that more than 130 people died every day in 2016 and 2017. Now that we've seen the prevalence of addiction, let's talk about how we can get educated on how to help. Mental health first aid is an important tool to have when dealing with mentally ill or addicted people in crisis. Mental health first aid is an international program proven to be effective. It worked so well in Australia, where it started, that other countries started taking their education and teaching it. The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration talks about mental health first aid. And it's not only used in helping strangers, it's used to help your friends, your family, your coworkers, your classmates. It can be equally beneficial to helping anyone. with mental illness or addiction at any level. The training helps people to assess others with mental health conditions. Training teaches to assess for risk of suicide or harm. Listen non-judgmentally. Give reassurance and information. Encourage the person to seek professional help. And encourage self-help and other strategies. Mental Health First Aid educates participants on a variety of topics. According to Mental Health First Aid USA, several topics such as depression and mood disorders, anxiety disorders, trauma, psychosis, and substance abuse disorders are covered in training. That includes Narcan, which is a overdose preventing drug. Mental health first aid training is very accessible. There is no reason why anybody in this room would not be able to do it. Mental health first aid training is only an 8-hour course. It's only 8 hours out of your day. Mental health first aid training is free of cost. Nothing would be coming out of your pocket. You can find a course by searching online at mentalhealthfirstaid.org. I myself went online and I searched for courses in Las Vegas, and there were many. They were all free of cost and they were all local. Now let's review. Mental illness and addiction are common problems affecting our population. The consequences of these diseases are devastating and sometimes even fatal. But there is a way for everyone to help. By getting trained in mental health first aid, we all have the potential to make a difference, maybe even save a life. I interviewed a recovering heroin addict who wished to remain anonymous. They described a time in their life where they were so depressed, their life held no more value. And one night they overdosed on heroin in a room full of people. Nobody came to their aid. They slipped into a month-long coma after that, after being found by the paramedics. They go on to say, if somebody had known how to revive me or knew how to save me, I never would have slipped into that coma. In the end, I got lucky. The good news is we don't need to leave it up to luck. Which person do you want to be? Do you want to be the person who looks the other way? Or do you want to be the person that is armed with knowledge and armed with facts so that you can make a difference and you can be the one to save a life? Thank you.